Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Profit Minded Business Podcast, where today we're joined by Lynn Spencer of Killingsworth Spencer CPA and Bill Cullo of Schooley Mitchell, franchise here in the Atlanta area. And so, one of the reasons why we all come together is because we want to learn from other business owners. We want to spend time working on our businesses and not in our businesses, and sometimes just taking time to listen to our podcast or visit with another business owner is all a big piece of that. And because business owners suffer silently, we're here to let you know that if you're struggling with something, you're probably very normal. And today, you're going to learn some things and hear about some stuff, and hopefully it's incredibly helpful to you. Bill, tell us a little bit about Schooley Mitchell, but also we want to hear about how you came into owning the franchise.
Sure. So at the top level, Schooley Mitchell is the largest independent cost reduction consulting firm in North America. So real quickly, we specialize in profit recovery through cost reduction. So that's how we help our clients increase their bottom line, is through cost reduction.
It's great. So you're working with businesses and they have expenses and you're just going to help them find money.
That is ultimately what it is. So the most tangible result benefit of what it is that we do is what would be called the found money. So we specialize in 4 categories. We do telecommunications, and you think about all ways that companies communicate. So that would be wireless phones or VoIP or local and long distance, internet, cable, conferencing, all things telecom. And then merchant services, so the ability for companies to accept credit card payments, we focus on that, as well as small package shipping. So that's defined as anything under 150 pounds. And then the newest category, as of just a couple weeks ago being introduced, is what's waste. So that you think about companies, restaurants, businesses that have dumpsters that are on regular intervals to be picked up and emptied. That's our newest category. And you're exactly right. So what it is, the most tangible benefit of what we do for our clients is identify found money. This is money that, meaning that they're overpaying for services that they don't need to pay. But they don't know that because the invoice this month is similar to the one from last month, so they must be okay. We have that heft and market ability to be able to negotiate those prices down such that they are getting the same service. So we're not consulting on addition through subtraction, meaning they're not cutting services. They're getting the same service that they've been paying for. They're just paying less for it. But I would say the great value that we provide is really maybe the time and security. So this is what we do is simple. It's just not easy. And if business owners could do it, they probably would. But they probably wouldn't do it as well as we do after having been in business for 20 years. So really what I'd like to talk about, the distinctive value, is that yes, we're going to identify savings. But moreover, we're going to take something off their plate such that they can focus their time in places that are really going to help. And so we are going to help increase that cash flow on their behalf without them having to do it.
Mm-hmm. So what I heard you say is that you come in and you evaluate those 4 key areas. And once you evaluate them, because of Schooley Mitchell's history, you guys already know what they should be paying based upon their spend and their level of business.
Right.
And then you guys then go to bat. And you're not actually, and I think I understand that you become almost like you're authorized as an agent for the business owner.
Exactly.
In order to act upon their behalf and negotiate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
So that is, you think about a very specific example, say, not picking on any provider, Verizon, AT&T. We have thousands of clients that we have negotiated better terms with for AT&T. We have the ability for a new client to then go back to them and say, here are pricing programs and platforms that you should be taking advantage of that you wouldn't know about. But we know about it because we've put other clients there. That gives us the ability to go back to AT&T, Comcast, Verizon, any one of those and say, hey, we want to be able to take advantage of these things that we've put other clients in. I know you can do this. Mm-hmm. They don't know about it, but we do because we've put other clients. We have that heft to be able to, not only do we have the market knowledge and experience, we have the heft to be able to go back and we want to take advantage of these pricing programs, and that's how we identify those savings areas.
So essentially, not only are you doing this up front, the first time the owner comes to you and says, hey, let's see what you can do,
right?
But you're doing it on an ongoing basis as new promotions and new opportunities come in.
So glad that you made that point, because that is truly one of the distinctive values, is that, again, I talk about what it is that we do find savings, absolutely, and it's not chump. But moreover, we're providing comfort, security, and time. And so this is not a one-time analysis where we say, this is how you should do this and hope and pray that your vendor keeps their end of the bargain. We make our money really by poring over invoices month in, month out, page by page, line by line, every month thereafter to ensure that they're holding up their end of the agreement and that moreover there are no errors in billings, which it's shocking how often you find errors.
Well, and Bill, I'm glad that you were doing this because it's such a pain in the butt. And not to mention, I mean, it's time consuming to do this in your own personal life.
Right.
To go through and fight with, at AT&T on like, should we cut the cable bill and go to internet TV? Like, it is such a struggle to even deal with that one thing.
Right.
That, because we're all doing baseball and, kids
life.
and life and, we got to go here, we got to do this. And so it just takes so much time and energy to sift through that. What mosquito, elimination company are you going to use? You got to go and interview them all. Like, oh my gosh, like it just, the nonsense of time it takes to call these people,
Right.
to call Comcast, to compare them to AT&T's UVerse. And I mean, just in our personal lives, it is such a pain in the ass.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, as a business owner, you just don't have time for it.
And not only do you not have time, you probably don't have the perspective. So again, you are coming at this unilaterally. You are banking on the fact that your service rep who you're working with, when they say that, hey, here's the best price I can give you, you have no context for what that is. We do. Having put tens of thousands of agreements together, we know what the marketplace is. We know what the lowest price is. So we have that context. And that is really the thing, that's one of the distinctive values that we provide.
Can I share a personal story?
Please.
Yeah, as you know, like I homeschooled the kids for 17 years, and I have a family of 2 kids and a husband. And
We're a homeschool family.
Oh.
We're a homeschool.
It's all the same here. They're done. So when I went to work, it was the first time in 17 years, and I came from a family of 4. I'm moving into an office of 3 as an admin. I mean, I'm just there to answer phones, but I had to get the mail and deliver all the bills over to the bookkeeper so that she could pay the bills. And, I'm not being nosy, but I'm, looking at this Verizon bill, and I'm looking at this Jive communications bill and this Charter communications bill, and these are giant bills. And I'm like, I could not understand it. And another month went by, and I'm like, I can't sit here and not look into this. So, I looked into it. I cut all those bills in almost half without any reduction in service. And I don't understand what Jive Communications does. I'm not quite I'm not quite sure what, why we're paying Jive and Charter. And I don't know that. And I feel like I probably could get it reduced even farther if I knew what these things were doing.
Context.
But Janet, who hired me in, she had her own business for years. She doesn't want to pay all that extra, and she's a numbers person. Yeah. She's a tax accountant. But as a small business owner whose business is just taking off, and she's very busy focusing on customers and clients and taxes, lost track of what was going on with that billing.
Yeah, and you think about what that money is now, the money that you were referring to. That is truly found money. And regardless
it was
of the amount,
hundreds of a month for a very small business.
And regardless of how much it is, more times than not, it's going to be sizable. And certainly in our case, we have not made a business out of finding pocket change. But regardless, that's money that's going to basically a tip to the vendor. Mm-hmm. You're just throwing that money out the window. Nonsensical. Why
it's
you
a
do
tip.
it.
I like that. You're just giving a tip.
Right.
It's a 50% tip.
That's right.
Here you go. Thanks for my coffee.
That's
to
right.
somebody you haven't even warmed up to. Or
Yeah.
Okay, so you're coming in there. This is what you do. Do business owners just welcome you in? Are they excited when you give them a call and you say, "This is what I do"?
Not as often as I would have thought, quite frankly. I mean, and that is a difficulty that is something that I'm still managing, still being relatively new. It is such a no-brainer. People have just been taught to be skeptical of no-brainers. But I think that's one of those things, and it's something that we have been able to stand the test of time, having been in business for some 20 years. That to me is a strong statement to be able to make. But yeah, I think people love the concept. They understand the concept. But again, what we do is simple, not easy, which makes me sometimes people think, well, I'll just do that. I'll pay attention.
Right.
And, life happens.
They
you know.
can't.
And it
They
does.
just
And
can't.
I'm sure that Janet's and my story is a very similar one.
Right. Yeah.
Well, people have employees. So businesses have admins that could do what you did. But most of the admins they're not entrepreneurs.
Right.
They're not, expense experts.
Right.
They're employees.
And what's the incentive? I mean, the
Right.
business makes more money. Do they make any more money? Maybe, maybe not. I
Right.
don't know. But, the other thing that, yes, it is what we do is simple, not easy. But that's not to say that it is sophisticated. So we have specialized tools that enable us to go back and identify errors from the past. We have an ability to maintain billing, so we are understanding what is coming in relative to what it should be. I mean, that's one of those things it seems like, and I wouldn't be surprised if that was the method of payment was, well, this month's invoice is similar to the last month's invoice, so I guess we're good to go. I guess we're good to go.
Well, in one of the cases, there was some lease on a phone property or phones, physical desk phones.
Yeah.
And the lease had expired years earlier.
Oh, yeah.
But the company continued to charge for that lease, and we owned technically we owned the phones, and it took the phone call to stop it, but they would not refund the money for the. I mean, it was robbery.
Yeah.
It really was. I remember how frustrating. And, back to your point that maybe, many business owners do have admins, and maybe not all admins are going to do it. And it might be, I think it was a piece of the puzzle as to why I've gone from not working in 17 years to being hired in as an admin to being partner a year and a half later. So, I mean.
You were already minded the way you needed to be.
Yeah, so it was my mindset. I mean, I'm very
That goes
frugal.
back to you just being, I always talk about you being an expert in logistics because running a family.
Yes.
I mean, especially in the homeschool family. I mean, I know I'm looking at you now because I know you know exactly what she was talking about.
Well, I know what my wife did. I would have.
You've got to be a logistics genius.
Yes.
And if you're not going into it, you will be when you're going out of it. Because you just learn those skills. But a fresh admin that isn't meant to be thinking like that isn't going to just naturally pick it up and then question the bill. Like, why would they question it? They have no idea.
Right.
It's not even their job to question it.
Right. So it's not right to expect a business owner's admin to do what you're talking about doing, Bill. So, okay, now that we've clarified that their admin's probably not qualified, and even if they can go make the phone calls, they're not going to get the same deals that you get because of your experience and your use of
and market perspective. Again, we're looking at the whole market, not just their bill or their singular bill, which is what they would be doing.
Right.
We're looking at the whole market and know what can be achieved.
That's cool.
So,
all right. So this is a free service.
So
explain how it works. I know that's the next point is like, okay. So
what does it cost? How much time does it take?
Paid?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that truly is one of the I love that piece about it. So we don't make a dollar until we save our clients too. So we identify savings and then we share in that savings, which is another way of saying we're taking in that money that they otherwise have been throwing to the vendor, and now we're pulling that back and we're sharing that. So we're splitting that savings 50-50. But if you think about it, that really amounts to it does not cost anything. There's no net amount of money coming out of our clients' accounts for engaging with us. Mm-hmm. We can only increase their bottom line. Mm-hmm. And so maybe to take a step back, how the process works, not all categories are relevant to all clients. Some have one, some have two, some have four of those four categories that we specialize in. But the first thing we're going to do is do basically an audit and understand what it is that they have been paying relative to what we know is the case in the marketplace. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen where we go back to clients and say, look, we can't improve on this. You guys are optimized, good to go. Yeah. And they walk away with the peace of mind knowing that at least in that one area, they're doing as well as they can. Now, in that regard, we don't charge them for anything. Mm-hmm. That is a free audit with leaving them with the peace of mind of knowing that they're optimized. More likely the case, we're going to be able to find savings. Otherwise, that would be a disastrous business model if we were doing things for free.
Right. If it was common that like,
Right.
oh, hey, you're great.
Yeah, right.
If that was a common thing. So the idea is that it's more common that you can save
that we can
them
find
money.
savings. Absolutely. That is
Okay.
more times the case. And what we're going to do is come back with 3 options to, again, maybe just talking about telecom, just as that one is probably the most universal. But again, we're doing the same process with the different categories. But we will come back with 3 options of savings. The first option is going to be not changing provider, because that can be a pain to change a provider. And the second option will likely be a drastic savings, but would entail changing provider. A third option would likely be maybe a technology change, maybe going from a landline SIP trunk to maybe more like a VoIP, like a voice over IP. 80% of our clients go with option A, which is
Keep
savings,
the same provider.
no change in provider.
Yeah, sure.
80%. So in essence, what they're doing is they're not changing. There's no transition. There's no change. They're just paying less for that, which they've been overpaying for.
Now, are you also well versed in making a technology change? Like, if option 3 is interesting enough for me to weigh the pros and cons, could you help me understand?
Absolutely. So we would be managing that process on their behalf, and that is, again, the heft of what Schooley Mitchell brings with the subject matter experts that know the lay of the land. That's what they do. They maintain a presence and understand always what's going on in that market, and understand the trends and what is coming and what's not and what's making its way out. So they are experts in those fields. We are experts in that field.
And will you in turn take that expertise and help your client understand?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean,
there's trade-offs, right? To moving technology, not just the change itself, but the actual technology is different.
Yeah, and sometimes sometimes it comes at a good time. Maybe they're moving. Maybe a business is moving locations. Maybe that's the time to do it. But more times than not, like I said, 80% of the time, our clients are going with option A.
And what I think I understand too is that because you stick around as part of that process, when they do, maybe they're not changing locations at this point. So option A is easy.
Right.
But 2 to 3 years down the road, option 3, which is the change technology, maybe they may be ready for it.
Absolutely.
And then you make that jump.
Absolutely.
Which may be obviously a new evaluation at that point.
Yeah, no, it would probably be, because the market will likely have changed, but maybe the recommendation that we made initially is still the one to go. But yeah, that's an example of how this relationship works, and that again, emphasizing that this is not a one-time analytical event where we say, here's your new pricing, good luck. Right. We're there, month in, month out, page by page, line by line.
Right. So as far as being invasive, you don't need a P&L from a business owner. You just want the invoices from those type of companies.
Absolutely. We just want the invoices. And I will say that we can work with hard copy invoices. It's just much more clunky. So ideally, if we can get online access to whatever their account is, that just makes it so much better. And as you could probably well imagine, there's so much more data provided and illustrated on an online than there is maybe on a hard copy invoice. We can still work with hard copy invoices.
Is it
just
easy
clunkier.
just to add you as a user, or is it
something?
something?
I don't know that we necessarily need to. That might make people feel uncomfortable. I mean, there's nothing that we're going to do. Obviously, that's part of what we agree to in our service agreement is that
confidentiality, privacy.
And that's just not a good business model to mess with their stuff. But we are just trying to understand and be able to see as much data as we can. The more data, the better.
Not to mention, I imagine, again, you're trying to make it as easy of a process for the owner as possible.
Exactly.
And for them to have to go print.
Exactly.
I mean, just to go back and get somebody, 6 months of bank statements, it's a real pain in the butt.
Oh, yeah.
Much less having to go through 4 different types of vendors to figure out,
You think like a merchant services invoice could be 80 pages.
Okay, no way. All right, so here's a big reason that, and you can just help clarify this. So let's say that I've got over $2 million in merchant services card processes, right? And I'm pretty confident that bringing you in is going to help save me some money. But here's the reality, is that my merchant service guy, he comes the minute I need him.
Yeah.
Like my systems go down, boom, I call them up. They're here helping me fix everything, getting straightened out. So if I bring you in, I'm afraid that you're going to, strong
step in the way of that relationship.
And then why would they then be motivated? Honestly, maybe I like tipping the person. in a sense. I mean,
Yeah.
but this is a scenario that I know is actually
Yeah.
a real scenario. So how do you get around that, or what's the story there?
So we can serve in the capacity of being sort of the go-to person, because that situation that you mentioned, I'm sure it's not incredibly unique, but it's not more in times than not. The service rep is not really all that much of a relationship, but I have no doubt there are occasions in which they do have a relationship. So obviously we have no interest in standing in the way. More likely the case, more often is the case, is that there is very little relationship between the client and their service rep. Maybe they know the person, maybe they don't. They're vaguely aware. We stand in as the go-to person that takes all those calls and
So then you actually come in
Yes.
if the device that we're slipping, whatever we're
right.
swiping.
We become the
or
point of contact.
You will come out and you provide service.
Not service. So we are. That's something that's very distinction of that's important to distinguish, is that we are not providers. We are not vendors.
Okay.
So we are literally just sort of serve, if they want, as a point of contact.
Okay.
So you think about merchant services other companies might call on our clients and they say, hey, we can lower your price, and they could just forward that on to us.
Bill, this brings me to a question that I have. I understand that there are different ways to handle a customer's or client's credit card that would lower the charge ultimately back to our firm. Is there really a trick to that? Because if there is, I don't know what it is. I've just heard a rumor.
Yeah, well, so, you think about the fact that is a world that none of us would necessarily understand. We can all sort of follow along on a phone bill, but a merchant services account are almost made, in fact, what I like to think, they have, over the years, government has made the interchange fee, which is basically what the processing fee is. They have made it more transparent, and they have hidden everything in perfect view. So absolutely, you can see everything and how it's done, but good luck trying to make sense of these things, these bills. I mean, there are 522 different interchange rates, and they all vary based on the type of card, whether the transaction is done as a tap, swipe, insert, card not present being sort of like an e-commerce. Well, that would be an e-commerce buy. So the card's not present, you dial it in. Each one of those things has different rates. And those rates are not negotiable, but they can be optimized. And those types of bills are riddled with mistakes. And again, the mistakes are all in the invoices, but good luck finding them.
Well, you have to just sit there and sort through it every single month in and month out.
Right.
And whether or not you swipe, you slip the card in, like it all has an impact.
Yeah.
And then are the mistakes as simple as when they insert the chip that it counts it as a swipe?
Something along those lines, absolutely.
Those are some of the mistakes. I mean, that's a big one.
You think about maybe an easier example of the errors would be shipping. I mentioned small package shipping.
Sure.
So oftentimes people will make a delivery with a date of 11:30 on Friday. It didn't show up until 2:30 on that Friday. That person is eligible for some sort of a refund. But one, you got to flag it. Two, you got to go through the steps involved in getting the refund. It's probably not worth their time. They wouldn't even know where to go. They wouldn't even know how to start.
That's not
so
gonna,
boom, one, pass. Well, again, that's what we do. Mm-hmm. So we identify that eligibility for a refund and get it.
So merchant processing is pretty universal, at this stage of the game.
We're becoming a cashless
fee.
society.
Yeah.
That's a big fee. I was sharing with you guys before. We had our best third. I use thirds and quarters instead of quarters, but we just had our best third, and then the merchant bill came afterward. I'm like,
depressing.
I guess we had our best third.
Yeah, I have a client.
So did our merchant services guy.
I have a client who 2 years ago started. It's a consulting firm. 2 years ago, he decided that using credit card payment would be an easier way to get past the nightmare of collections. Mm-hmm. So his net 30s were becoming net 90s and 120s. He said, hey, I'm going to start allowing people to pay credit card. Beautiful. Now they were paying like that. But then, as you said, all of a sudden the processing fees amounted to basically another salary.
It's significant.
Of an employee. Yeah.
It really is.
So is there a way to say what people should be? I mean, can you give a range so the people who are listening and go, well, I'm only paying 2.9.
Right.
I'm in good shape. And, would you say, maybe
Yeah,
not?
I mean, it'd be hard to summarily do that. But that is probably the range. Is 3% is probably what people are paying, and this goes to, depending on the volume that they're doing. We are going to be able to be successful in bringing that down by some percentage. I couldn't possibly give a range, but it's going to be better than they were paying. And again, better means that that's money that they are otherwise, unless they're engaging with us, they're just throwing it out the window.
Right.
So
let's say someone, you help them find the money, and merchant processing, obviously, I keep going back to that because it's the most universal and understood. You save the money, and then you share in the savings, and it's a 50-50 share. How long does that go on?
So we do that for about 3 years. 3 years is the typical contract length.
Okay.
And we have found that that is the length that, quite frankly, is best for us as well as our clients. That's how we. It just seems like that's the length after some trial and error. That 3 years seems to be the one that works out best for both sides, clients and us.
And after 3 years, does it continue? I mean, basically, but the reality is that you're in there all the time.
Yes.
Monitoring, looking out for mistakes, so you're there kind of standing in the gap. Is there a certain point where the initial savings is there any change in that contract for 3 years?
There could be. And certainly over time, what you're likely to see is that new technologies, something new is introduced into the process where it does change from what their initial situation was. And again, that goes back to the expertise in the field that we provide. That we are staying on top of those trends to understand what they should be doing, and we provide them with recommendations all the time about. They don't have to take the recommendations, but we are saying that, hey, this is a new trend, that this is a new adaptation that's being added in this space. If you'd like to, we think we could save you this amount of money. The contract term is 3 years. It is very common for us to extend that. Now, it's not an auto renewal. It's a purposeful renewal. Contracts coming up. What do you guys think? Chances are at that point they've become so comfortable with this thing not being on their plate and it being handled that we do renew. But it doesn't have to.
Well, there's comfort in knowing that you've got the best price.
Right.
There really is.
Right, and just being able to take that off your plate. We're not a vendor. We're a consultant, and we have their back. I mean, one of the things I love about what it is that we do is, unlike most consulting commerce, where you have to, in order for me to do well, I have to extract out of my client. Here, we have a shared interest. We are literally on the same side of the table. The more savings we find for them, the better we do. So we are literally we have a shared interest in trying to find as much savings as humanly possible.
Okay, so let's say that you meet business owner, and he says, wow, this is a great idea. He or she says, come on in and let's take a look. What does it look like to begin the process with you, and what does the ongoing meeting look like?
Right.
Like, what happens?
Right. So the process, we try to keep it pretty simple. So there is what in our parlance is referred to as a briefing. In my old life, I would have called that a pitch. So we're talking about what it is that we do, and we go through that to determine if we can be helpful, right? So again, that's one of those things that I emphasize. Don't know if we can help, but let's see if we can be helpful. So first and foremost, we are going to grab the first tranche of invoices for whatever category that we're going to consult on. This is after they sign the service agreement, the letters of authorization that enable us to look on their behalf as an agent, a third party, to be able to look and negotiate on their behalf.
Yeah.
Not implement, just renegotiate. So the process takes from the time they sign the service agreement, sign the letters of authorization, maybe about 4 to 5 weeks to do the initial analysis. Again, what we do is simple. It's just not easy. It does take a little bit of time to both download what it is that they've been paying in these areas, and then moreover to negotiate a new rate with these different vendors. So that takes about 4 to 5 weeks. And then the next stage is that we would go back to them in our parlance, it's referred to as a value report. And that is basically option 1, 2, 3.
Okay. Now, all right, so you're going to go in, you're going to look for new savings going forward. Do you ever recapture what
Yes.
they should have gotten had.
If it's an error, yes, absolutely. And there are many stories in our system where we've identified, probably not in the example that you had shared earlier about how there were lines that weren't even live, but they were paying for them.
The lease that you
Yeah.
were talking about.
Yeah, that's probably a bummer. You can stop it, but you're not going back in time. But there are ways that whether it be shipping or merchant services, where again the rates on the interchange fees with merchant service are not negotiable, but they can be optimized. Or moreover, more likely case, they were mistakes, and that we catch them, and it can go back in time retroactively to be able to grab that savings.
And
back.
all the more reason, in my case, where you couldn't go back in time and recoup some of that money, to do it now and not wait till tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yeah, at what
There's
point can
another
you no
lost
longer
day.
go back? I mean, with taxes, you can go back 3 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What about this?
There might be a statute of limitations. I don't know. I mean, like I said, I am familiar with a handful of stories where people have identified going back years. So
The government can go back farther than 3
yeah.
years.
Can they?
Your taxes. Oh, yeah.
oh yeah.
Oh, I thought it was
Yeah, if
3.
you're involved in a fraudulent activity or criminal
Right.
behavior, oh, yeah.
But they can't go, well, sidebar conversation.
yeah.
What?
Topic for another day.
Yeah.
Topic for
Cameras
another
off.
day. Yeah. Okay, so, all right, this is great. So you can go back, you're going to find some money, and you're going to actually recapture mistakes.
Immediately.
Yeah. And that could be found money right off the bat.
Absolutely.
Okay, so, I mean, small 3-man shop, whatever the case is, comes to you, we've got, $100,000 worth of credit cards. Probably not your fit.
Probably not. Yeah. So
Tell me where you need to be in order to
Right.
find the value.
So there are thresholds, and that has less to do with us not wanting to help the little guy, but
Right.
moreover, there's just a level of traction required in order to find savings, right? So, I mean, we don't do residential phone systems. They're just
Right.
not enough. So historically, over time, we have identified minimum thresholds in which if a company, business, organization is spending about this a month, we have historically been able to find savings.
What are
So
those?
in those specific categories, if they're spending around $750 a month for telecom, chances are we're able to find some savings. Much below that, maybe not. Merchant services, the threshold that we have discovered is about $20,000 in payments per month, which is really not that much.
Not fees.
Credit card payments, not fees, exactly. And then shipping, roughly, if they're doing, and that would be envelopes and things that are, again, less than 150 pounds. If they're spending about $750, $800 a month on their shipping needs, that is a threshold in which we feel like we
$750 and $800 a month in shipping.
Yeah.
$750,000 annually for telecom. So what you said?
$750 a month.
$750 a month.
You're right, which is,
Okay,
again,
thank
not
you.
that
was-
much.
I was going to say, that's a big number for telecom, $750,000. But okay,
Yeah.
$750 a month, $800 a month for
Shipping.
shipping.
20,000.
$20,000
If they're
a
spending
month in
20,000 a month,
credit
if they're
Transacting.
exactly.
$20,000 a month in credit
And then
card.
waste, if they're spending about $200 a month on their dumpsters and bins, chances are that's something we can save.
So if
money
you go
on.
from $200 a month down to $150,
Exactly.
that's what you're talking about.
And again, it doesn't sound $50 a month, but I mean, that's money that's not
Over a year,
going to
Well, I mean,
$600.
You got to understand, from what I do, when I go in with a client and I'm helping them understand their financials and then helping them, fix the bottom line, having someone like you come in to handle this functionality is an immediate savings.
Right.
Is an immediate transformation of that bottom line that they don't have to do the work on. They don't have to figure out, get their team together and,
Right.
and pull them off of other projects.
Right.
That the person at the front who's answering the phones needs to stop answering the phones in order to check out the Verizon bill.
Right.
You're going to come in, you're going to make it as easy as possible for that business to give you access so you can do your job.
Right.
And then you're going to come back with the value report, so many weeks later, 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Present the options in each of the key areas and help them find that savings and then realize those savings as soon as how many weeks before those savings start to really show up.
Well,
on the
it'd be
bottom
whatever
line.
they're, so generally probably a monthly invoice. So they're going to
Couple of
see that
cycles.
savings that first month after they sort of implement.
And I disagree with you, though. I think $50 is a big deal because small business owners aren't working with a whole lot more capital than
Right.
just a household. And $50, we all know,
$600 a year. I mean,
yeah,
again,
make a difference and give you some
that's
wiggle
money you're
room.
just shucking out the window right
Right.
now.
Well, that's huge, especially when people are trying to hire, they're trying to add benefits, they're trying to compete in an area where unemployment is so low. Like finding this money to apply to, whether it's to help them attract new talent, whether it's to help them save money for new initiatives, helping to just pad their own retirement. For God knows that it's like constant struggle. To make all of these variables make sense, and having you come in and provide that peace of mind is pretty powerful, Bill.
It is, and I think one of the things that I always like to talk about is, when we engage or talk to clients for the first time, is trying to figure out what is on their priority list and their initiatives. I mean, obviously, the 1, 2, 3 on their list are things that they have to do regardless. But chances are there are things that they have on their wish list. Boy, they could make life better. They could make business better. They just can't do it this year. They don't have the money. Let's see, maybe next year, whatever that could be. Maybe it's hiring somebody new. Maybe it's adding some marketing things, or maybe they could add some technology. What I like to talk about is that this type of savings for money that is found money is the difference maker from the things that they have to do this year to the things they really want to do that they just don't have the time or money for. That is oftentimes the money that we are identifying for them. And again, we have not made a business or stayed in business by identifying chump change.
Right.
We have averaged historically savings in the neighborhood of about 28%. So depending on the spend.
Per the area.
Yeah, per the area.
So let's say it's 20 to, what'd you say? How many? Is 20-something percent?
28%.
28%. So telecom, waste, shipping, emergent services, you're saving somewhere around 28%.
Almost $1 in $3 being spent in that or wasted in that area is going to then come back to them.
Wow.
Somewhere between $1 in $4 or $1 in $3 that they are, until we find that money, they're just thrown out the window.
Wow. All right.
I'm loving it.
Yeah. So, all right. So how do they get in touch with you?
Well, so I physically am here, obviously, in the Atlanta area and new to this area, so I love it. But SchooleyMitchell.com, Bill Cullo, Bill.Cullo, Cullo, at SchooleyMitchell.com. Do you want something as crass as my phone number?
Please.
Yeah, okay. So,
not crass at all. We want people to be able to call you. The thing about it is that, if you're listening right now and this makes sense to you, and you're sitting there trying to figure out how you're going to make your bottom line better, you can either call me and help, and I'll introduce you to Bill, but you can just call Bill directly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, this is one of those services that the reason why we brought Bill on is because, we don't want business owners paying more than they need to, right? I mean, we're all struggling to figure out how to get those margins up. If you're not doing cash, if you're not doing a profit first already, at least get in here and start to increase your profitability through a program like Bill's. So please, Bill, what is your phone number?
Phone number, my cell phone, 202-390-5488.
That's great.
And my office line is 770-282-1788.
That's awesome. And
we brought Bill on more for just this story. I mean, he's got quite an interesting backstory, which has nothing to do with cost savings.
Yeah, well, I
true.
think what we'll do is, with Bill, with your background in political and business, consulting, coming out of D.C., you've got so much information on right-sizing someone's image from a business standpoint and experiencing with large companies as large as like Monsanto, some of these companies that you mentioned, being a part of the team that was reviewing some of these things. A lot of things. So if you reach out to Bill, ask him more about his background because I think he's a lot more dynamic than just on the cost savings.
I have had an interesting career. So I am new to this area. I'm new to this, what I'm doing now, starting earlier this year. But prior to that, spent over 2 decades in D.C. as both a political consultant and a management consultant in a cruel world that is not forgiving. So after about 25 years, my wife and I said, enough. There's got to be an easier way. Let's move down to Atlanta and start over, or start anew, if you will.
Yeah. Well, what are some of the things that you might say that you saw in some of the larger companies that maybe just from a small business owner who's struggling to transition from the digital age, and there's just, I mean, bottom line is most of the businesses that I talk to, they're just trying to make their business successful. They've got goals in mind. They've got people to work with, to manage. They've got phone calls to make. And it's hard to make big changes in a business.
Yeah.
What is your advice for somebody who is trying to make sense of it all?
So it is interesting. So I have had experience working with large companies, and they move slowly, but they move with a tremendous amount of force. I think one of the great things about being a small business, meeting with other small businesses, is our ability to be agile and fleet of foot and be able to make these changes. I mean, it's a bit of a cliche to say that big businesses move slowly. They do, I guess, maybe in the grand scheme, but boy, they have clearly taken advantage of, we are now in an information economy. They are clearly leveraging those areas. Certainly in my experience, that is an area of focus. They do business differently now than they did, say, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. I mean, they're taking advantage of all that they can. And I think my experience is that one of the great things is being a small business. You do have that ability to... And quite frankly, not only do you have that ability, you have to. I mean, there's no other way around it. I mean, again, we're in an information economy. You have to be available on all different platforms, or social media or phone. I mean, I'm just old enough to sort of have done business the old way and not entirely adept at social media and whatnot, but certainly I understand it enough to know that that's the way it has to work.
One of the things we were talking about before we sat down and started recording was the differences between the South and the North. and what I heard you say a minute ago was that big businesses, one of the things that you learned and that you appreciate about working with smaller businesses now is how quickly they're able to make decisions and say yes to new initiatives, especially one as simple as cutting costs.
Right.
But I think what you and I were talking about, and Lynn, was just that how different the mentality is down here, to where you go to somebody and you say, hey, I can come in and help you save a bunch of money, that you don't get that warm welcome, and you're wondering if it's a southern, northern, like different pace.
Yeah, I do. I literally was just starting to think because one of the things we loved about coming here is a more amenable pace of life. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say slow. I mean, again, this is not Apple Creek. This is not Apple Creek, Arkansas.
Oh gosh,
I mean,
no.
Atlanta is the capital of the Southeast country. It's the busiest airport in the world based on flights. It is a major market with gobs. I couldn't even tell you how many Fortune 500s are headquartered. It is. So I don't want to, by any stretch, pretend like I'm talking about Atlanta as if it's Mayberry. But
smart move there.
Yes.
Anybody who's driven through our traffic knows it's not.
No doubt. But it is unmistakable that the pace of life is more agreeable. And I am starting to think, yes, maybe there is a price of admission with that pace of life. That everyone's always very friendly, but that which I thought we could do today, man, let's do it next week.
Yeah.
I wonder. And actually, Corbin, you started out the lifeblood of this podcast has to do with talking to small businesses, them thinking that they're uniquely positioned or uniquely experiencing something. I right now am debating whether or not I am uniquely experiencing this notion of that which I'd like to do today. I'll come back next week. I'm curious. Is that just me?
It's a thing.
Yeah, it's a thing.
It's a thing. You're normal.
There you go.
Here
Discovery.
in Atlanta, that is normal.
Yeah.
So what I noticed,
Specifically
I came from Detroit about 6 years ago, and the first thing I noticed, and my family noticed it as well, is there are way more people outside here.
Yes.
And there are way more people physically fit down here. They're outside, they're walking their dogs, they're smelling the flowers, looking at the trees. And they do that up in the north, of course, but it's just a way of life here.
Yeah.
There is some time to, just that time to yourself here, which I just didn't. And it was obvious. And then we've had family come or guests come, and they're like, wow, people are outside here.
And that was part of what my wife, insofar as she's from anywhere, Her father was in the Army, so she went to 3 high schools. So insofar as she's from anywhere, this is as close to somewhere where she's from. And we would come down here frequently, and that was our experience as well, as people are out and they're engaged. And boy, it just seemed like just an easier way of life.
Mm-hmm.
So.
That's great. Well, Bill, I'm going to wrap it up, but, is there one thing that really stands out? And, I mean, to me, it seems obvious what today's message was all about. But is there one thing that you'd want someone who's listening to walk away with as a business owner themselves from hearing from you today?
So I would say that the thing that I try to emphasize is specific to Schooley Mitchell and what it is that we do. There's no mystery. There is only 2 outcomes that can occur from engaging with us. One, and both is good for the client. One is that they walk away knowing that, hey, I've optimized this. I'm good to go. I can't do better than I'm doing. Great. Doesn't cost them anything. There's no risk in doing that. We have a market perspective to understand that that is a true, legitimate opinion that they are doing. More likely the case, we're going to be able to identify savings. So there is no way. There is only 2 outcomes that come from engaging with us.
Right.
Either peace of mind, or they're going to start saving some money. And maybe that's the piece that I'd love to leave with.
So it's not a waste of time. It's only going to outcome in savings
or
the peace of mind knowing that you've got the best deal.
You're good to go. Yeah.
All right. Lynn, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
No, just it's making me think that, I haven't revisited these things of my own in the past, and I do have a little bit of a skill for that. So I'm going to just have to stop because I can't recover yesterday.
That's true.
I can only recover today going forward.
And thank you guys for putting this together. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. We're glad to have you. Well, feel free to reach out to Lynn and her team over at Killingsworth Spencer CPA if you have any tax questions. Specifically, if you're not working with your CPA on a regular basis to do tax planning throughout the year, we highly
You're losing
recommend.
some tax money there too.
Yeah,
Right.
it's kind of a similar thing.
Even worse, you're
with,
sending that to the government.
right. So I mean, it's a very similar
nice tip.
concept. You want to have Lynn and her team on your side. So please feel free to reach out to her. And where can they reach out to you?
You can call me directly, 770-552-8286. Lynn Spencer, ask, and you'll get to me, and I'll take care of you.
Great. And I'm Corbin Cook, your host at S&B Strategy Consultants and part of Auxilium Associates. And, it's your profit, so you should be able to keep it. If you have any questions about cash flow or you feel like you need some more insight into forecasting, reach out to me directly at 404-783-3305. Thank you so much,
Awesome.
Bill, for joining
Thank
us,
you.
and thank you, Lynn.
Thank you,
All right.
Corbin.
Have a great week, everybody.
Thanks.